Hi, this is CBRadioMagazine.com, and today we're going to look at the RCI-2970N2 radio. This is one of the newer version radios from RCI. The 2970N2 is coming after the 2970DX, and I'm sure you guys remember the original 2970 that was before the DX versions. This radio is a little bit different than the 2970DX. It uses a different amplifier circuit under the radio on the bottom section of the cover. The previous 2970DX used a 2-pill type setup. This radio uses an 8 transistor style setup on the bottom. Does produce a little bit more horsepower than the original 2970DX. This radio is going to be over 200 watts on sideband pretty easily, especially after having a tune on the radio. Even with a mild tune, you're going to be putting out some pretty strong wattage. The radio itself, very similar in styling and function and features to the 2950DX and 2970DX. We'll walk you through the features on the radio, and we'll also pop the covers and show you the inside, what the inside of the radio and what the amplifier circuit looks like. And so if you want to see the difference between this radio and the 2970DX. The radio does use the standard RCI microphone with the up-down buttons on the top, which is always a nice feature if you're in the mobile and you like to be able to scan through the frequencies. Once again, this is a 10 and 12 meter radio originally, and there is a lot of shielding and stuff inside the radio, so it does produce quite clear quality sound, as I'm sure most people are familiar with these radios. And a lot of the amateur community actually will use these on 10 and 12 meters, aside from the other people that convert them for somewhat illegal functions. But as a ham radio, it does function quite well just for phone 10 meter operation. Having a little closer look at the radio, on the left hand side here you can see the large channel changing control. This controls the frequency as you change it and adjust the frequency. Underneath is the standard 6-pin RCI connection for your microphone. Looking at the display on this radio, you will see it's a 6-digit frequency display. This is not an active counter, it's a frequency display. You don't really need an active counter on these radios since they don't really have any issues with drift. As long as it's set up correctly to start with, it should stay on frequency and you really shouldn't have any issues. So no reason for an active frequency counter. Clarifier, you don't really need unlocked either. The radio, you can shift the frequency using the controls and features on the radio, and you can see where you are. The button features here, we've got a noise blank, automatic noise limiter, Roger beep. You've got a split frequency option on this radio. Programming, you can store up to 10 frequencies in the memory of the radio. Has a manual button, and once the radio is converted, it does switch you between the frequency display or a channel display. On the channel display, as you hit channel 40, it'll rotate you back down to channel 1 and back the opposite way. In the frequency portion, it'll just continue on through the band. It's just continuous tuning that way. There's a shift button located here. It allows you to tune in different increments. And so when I was describing the no need to unlock the clarifier, that's because you can tune down and incrementally. There are up-down buttons here. These function as well in addition to the channel changing control knob or the microphone that you can change the frequencies channels on. There's a dim switch here which dims the display. SWR, if you press this, the meter here becomes active for SWR. There's a scan function on this radio that you saw when we first started our review. Memory, this is for storing the frequencies, and the enter button which works with that, and a lockout feature. If you're worried about hitting anything, you hit this and then none of the buttons will function until you press the lock button again. On the right hand side of the radio, you'll see our RF power and microphone gain. The RF power is the inside knob, microphone gain is on the outside. Volume control is right here. It also is your on-off for the radio, and there's a squelch on the outside. Your clarifier is on the inside here, and RF gain on the outside. Here we have a control for our different modes, AM, FM, upper sideband, lower sideband, CW, and our PA function, of course. Let's take a look underneath the radio, show you what the bottom of the case looks like, and we'll show you the back of the radio. Also, I'll show you kind of the interesting power wires that come with this radio. Bottom of the radio has large heatsink type fins on it. This is the amplifier circuit area is inside there. There also is a small internal fan in there that does keep the amplifier section cool. Looking at the back of the radio, you can see the heatsink there. That's for the radio itself, for the internal driver section. And you'll see on the right side of the radio that we do have plugs there for your CW key, external speaker, or PA speaker. Radio is a little bit different in terms of how the power connections are done. For power wires, they come directly out of the radio. The antenna has a wire that comes directly out of the radio as well, and you hook your coax up to that. Okay, here's the antenna connector on this radio, and as you can see, it comes directly out of the radio, and you would connect your coax and just screw it on directly there. Power wires, kind of interesting on this radio as well. They come out of the back of the radio and they run to like an Anderson power pole type connector setup there. That can have it basically is a quick disconnect, so you can just flip two pieces apart and unplug it. The hardwire section of the radio be wired in. It does come with its own fuse, so that's nice. And then it just terminates in two open wires that you would then wire to your 8-gauge wire for the radio install. So you definitely recommend installing this with 6-gauge or 8-gauge wire for the amperage draw. We've removed the covers on the 2970DX-N2, and now we can see the inside of the board. We'll show you up front here. For conversion, these radios do require a special jumper. This is a special, a lot of people call it an E-chip. And it plugs into the front of the radio there, and that allows for the operation on the extended frequencies. Radio itself is very similar to the 2950DX, 2970DX previous versions. Not a whole lot has changed on the inside. There's been a couple small changes. This is the amplifier section on the bottom of the radio. It has a cover on it, and we'll remove that. Once we remove the cover on the amplifier circuit, it's on the bottom side of the radio case. You can see the 8 MOSFET IRF 520 transistors located in the bottom of this amplifier section. It does provide for quite a bit of output on this radio, definitely in the 200 plus range. Much like previous versions of the 2950DX, 2970DX, the N2 does have the board labeled, screen printed with the adjustment locations right on the board for modulation, AM, high-low power, and single sideband output power, your ALC up there. And so it's very easy to go in and make adjustments on the radio, of course. As always, be careful and follow the factory alignment procedures, but all the points are easily labeled and found on the board. Overall, our impressions of the RCI-2970N2 are very positive. The radio acts just like its older versions, 2950DX, 2970DX. Very good receive, excellent sideband operation, very stable on frequency, no drift whatsoever. This particular model definitely puts out more power than the 2970DX, making easily over 200 watts in sideband after some mild tuning. The manual suggests a 30 amp continuous power supply if you're running on a base. I'd probably say even a little bit more than that might be recommended. Go ahead and grab a 50 amp if you're picking up power supply for this radio, just to make sure you got plenty of excess for it. It does pull quite a bit of amperage when it's at full tilt running. The overall operation of the radio, like I said, very similar to the previous radios. Design, function, everything basically identical. Just a little bit quieter, I think, on the receive than the 2970DX, so I'm not sure if they made some changes inside. I'll have to talk to RCI about that. But overall, very nice radio, excellent for DX. Operation on 10 meters was very good, no complaints, very clean audio. On expanded frequency mode, same thing, very easily made contacts in DX. The overall design in terms of hooking it up, a little bit different than other radios. Definitely takes a little bit more thought process in the install. You'll need to run a little heavier gauge wire. So if you're just someone who's basically getting into the hobby and not real sure on what you're doing, you may want to ask for someone to give you a little assistance in hooking up, since you do need a little heavier gauge wire. Make sure that your radio and antenna are well tuned and everything. This has been CBRadioMagazine.com. Thanks for watching our review of the RCI-2970N2, and we hopefully are going to get one of the blackface versions soon with the green numbers. As well, we'll have our written review up on our website shortly. That will contain more details with the radio and additional pictures and information.